Well, hello there. How are you going today? My name's Campbell. This is Autodidactic 2. Thanks for joining me. And of course, autodidactic means to be self-educated, which basically means, we need to make our own decisions, come to our own conclusions, check out the information, definitely get three or more different perspectives on it, because you can't actually make a decision with less than that. And that's what we do here. We have a look at what's going on in this strange realm and we get information and come to our own conclusions. So today we're going to have a look at the great dumbing down and everything that's going on around at the moment. And of course, this is all just for entertainment purposes only. Got to say that one right. And yeah, so don't believe me and anything I say. Don't believe anything on the videos. Like I said, take in the information and come to your own conclusion.
There's a conspiracy theory that modern school wasn't designed to make people think, but to make them comply. The theory often points to John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest men in history. He helped fund early public education programs in the early 1900s, especially through organizations that shaped the school system we still use today. And something he actually said was, he wanted a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. While historians debate whether he said it exactly like that, critics argue his actions mattered more than the words. Schools were modeled after factory systems, bells, strict schedules, standardized testing, sitting still, and following instructions. Creativity, questioning authority, and independent thinking were often discouraged. And according to some, this wasn't accidental. It trained children to become efficient employees, on time, obedient, and comfortable taking order. School teaches what to think, not how to think, and that the system works exactly as it was designed to. Stay weird.
John D. Rockefeller was one of the richest men in the entire world from the oil industry. And in 1903, he funded the General Education Board with a famous quote of saying, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." The General Education Board's main objective was to create schools that focused on obeying authority, following rules, memorizing, not thinking, and breeding you to work 9-to-5 jobs for elite corporations. That is why we see the mundane subjects in school of things like math, English, and other subjects. And I mean, even look at our schools. They look like prisons. But here's where things get really messed up. John D. Rockefeller also funded big pharma and medical schools, with the initiative being from taking people from natural healing remedies towards pharmaceutical-based care. And from this, he created a perfect system. The schools create the workers. They work forever, which makes them sick. Then they have to take pharmaceutical drugs to stay alive. And from that, he makes endless money. Our education system is really just a monopoly. It is breeding workers so that the elites keep making more money. This is why it is more important than ever
To think for yourself. Yes, John D. Rockefeller. That's all true. He did. He started and funded the modern education system. Yes, it was modeled on what were called factory towns. And these were basically factories, right? And the workers got free food and board, and they got paid in money they could only spend within that factory town. So they could never leave because they couldn't actually build up any wealth. But yes, the school system is there to dumb us down, right? It teaches us what to think, not how to think. And, I agree with everything they said pretty much, right? It's there to turn us into worker slaves, into debt slaves that they can then use to make more money. Obviously, the links to Big Pharma and all that. That's their secondary project. But ultimately, it's to control. They get total control, right? And they get extremely wealthy. They extract all the wealth and it goes up, right? So the pool of money and wealth left for us, we the men and women of the world, gets less and less. And of course, this is now, going into social media, the 2D world, all of this stuff, AI, they're really doubling down on it. And we're starting to see some pretty bad effects on our younger generations. So, yes, were you a problem child at school? I definitely was. I was definitely asking questions all the wrong time. They don't like questions, right? They don't, teachers hate to be questioned because, they're dumbed down as well. They only have their books to refer to, and they're also, that's all they're allowed to do. They're not allowed to really go out on the edge and start talking about proper concepts and having proper conversations. They're there to teach, right? They're not there to educate. They're not called educators. They're called teachers. You know, sit down, shut up, and believe everything I say, then regurgitate it back to me, and I'll call you a good, smart student.
I don't know if this happened to you, but right around, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s, you just realize I am dumb. I know almost nothing about everything. I spent all those years in school and I'm still stupid. How did this happen? So when I read Gatto's book, I thought, well, yeah, maybe I could have done better. I could have worked harder. I could have stayed in college, but my whole time there was just a huge blank. And the things that I remembered learning from my parents, such as multiplication tables with 3x5 homemade flashcards in the bathtub at home. The books that I read at home and that my mother read to me, I remember those. I remember almost none of the books we read in school. So, I got that like, wow, Gatto was onto something here with this doing the same thing to everybody in the same way according to the same schedule generally serves no one well because all kids are different.
Yes, all kids are different. All kids learn in different ways, right? There's different ways to learn. There's auditory where you learn better by listening. There's kinesthetic where you learn better by doing. There's visual, right? And orientated, where you learn better from reading, right? And watching what's on the board, all these different ways of learning, but they put us all into one system, right? One way to learn. And that's why some kids excel and some others don't. And it's got nothing to do with intelligence. They did a study quite a few years back where they basically put, first graders, they gave them a test and they did the same at the end of school, right? The 12th graders or, whatever it's called in your country. And what they found is that when kids start school, they were getting across the board, it was a 98%, they were hitting genius level. At the end of school, it was down to under 10%. I think it was around 5% were still at genius level. So that's really proof positive, right? That school dumbs us down and makes us stupid. And like he said, you don't remember a lot of it because you're not interested, right? School is boring. I was definitely one of the kids who was looking out the window and, most of the time because I'm more of a kinesthetic learner. I don't learn much when I'm just sitting there and someone's talking at me, and especially if you can't ask questions. But the whole, you learn more at home than you do at school. I totally agree. Is this what it was like for you? Let me know in the comments. Did you learn more from the education system or from life, from your parents, from your peers and family, and doing things and being involved? Because that's really how we learn is that things need to make sense to us, right? Or else we don't take it in. So like when you're learning maths, you can learn that when you're building something. You can learn maths and geometry, right? Much better because you're doing things. You're involving more than one sense, right? You're doing, you're seeing, and probably hearing, right? Someone telling you what to do. Um, but yeah, let me know your thoughts. How did you go in school and where did you learn the most in your life?
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We know big government does not have all the answers. We know there's not a program for every problem.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Well, there you go. That's what they want you to believe, right? Don't think for yourself. Don't sort out your own issues. Don't come up with your own solutions. Just rely on government, right? Because they're so good to us, right? Everything they do is for us. I mean, it's just at this point of the game, it's just stupid to believe that, right? I'm sure there's still people out there that do, but It's crazy. And this is definitely a part of the dumbing down. Let someone else think for you.
If you're highly intelligent, you've probably learned how to tone yourself down just to avoid being labeled as difficult, too much, or simply to avoid being misunderstood. And you most likely have to do this at work settings because others, your colleagues, may find you intimidating whenever you are displaying your intelligence and being your authentic self. And when others see you as intimidating, you probably don't feel safe. And I can totally get it. You think fast, you think in systems, you go deep, deeper than anyone else. And instead of curiosity and questions and others trying to understand your train of thought, you are met with silence or confusion or even worse, dismissal. So you quickly get it. You start to edit, you start to simplify things, you start to choosing your words, crafting conversations in your head so that other people would understand what you are trying to say. You're basically numbing down your brilliance so that others would keep up. And it can be extremely frustrating and also very, very lonely. Whenever I feel that frustration, I try to remind myself that we are all having very different human experiences. This is my experience, being fast, being quick, seeing things with clarity. And just because others don't see things in a similar way, it doesn't mean that the way I see things is wrong, or that the way that they experience things is wrong either. The more confident you feel with who you truly are, and you know who you are, and you know what actually matters to you, dealing with that frustration just becomes easier and easier.
Trust yourself. Definitely, you are intelligent. So don't ever put yourself in the position where you think that you're not, right, and that other people are. Majority, just because most people, the majority dismiss you or can't handle, the concepts that you're talking about, that doesn't make you dumb, right? The truth is still the truth, even if it's in the minority of one. But have you ever done this? Have you caught yourself doing this? Have you caught yourself, I mean, self-censoring? I've definitely had to do that on this platform just to make sure my channel doesn't get taken down, right? But is this something that you do in life, in normal life? When I was a kid, I was definitely a black sheep, black sheeps unite. And I was always, apparently saying the wrong thing, asking the wrong questions. And it was just that, I thought about life a lot, from a young age. I was always questioning what is going on here? There's something wrong. And, when that happens, you start to not say as much, right? You start to keep your thoughts to yourself. And I was lucky because what my conclusion to that was that, well, everyone else must be stupid, right? I'm clearly correct. I'm lucky that I always believed in myself and my thoughts and my conclusions, right? And that's one of the reasons, right, why my channels are called Autodidactic, self-education. It's always been very big to me. But let me know, has this affected your life? Because definitely since 2020, right, the amount of people we can actually have a conversation with has shrunk dramatically because they just can't take on the concepts that we're talking about. But leave me a comment. Let me know your experience.
There are two American psychologists named Dunning and Kruger. There's something, the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so what they did was this. They ran an experiment. They had 500 students in their psychology class, first year university. They made every student take an IQ test. And then after they took the IQ test, they asked each student, how do you think you did on the IQ test? Do you place in the top 5% or the bottom 5%? And it turns out that no one got the ranking correct. Okay? So those who were in the top 5% in terms of IQ thought they were maybe in the top 20%. Because for them it was easy, so they assumed for everyone else it was easy as well. But what was dramatic is that those who scored the lowest thought they were average, okay? So the worst 5% in the class thought they were in the top 50% or just average. And the reason why is those people who are stupid lack the capacity to know they're stupid. Okay? So what Dunning-Kruger discovered is that the hardest part of being a student is to assess yourself properly, to know exactly where you stand and how to improve. Those who are stupid are often the most confident in the world. That's what's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And this helps us explain why the world is why it is. Because often the people in power are stupid. They don't know they're stupid. They're overconfident. And they do stupid things like Donald Trump, okay?
Yes, and all politicians, right? I mean, it's got to the point now. I've shown a few clips on this channel. I mean, oh my gosh, some of the people in power are literally just ridiculously stupid. You know, we are led by the least among us. You know, again, the great dumbing down, right? If you have stupid leaders that want you to rely on them making all the decisions, well, I mean, what's going to be the result of that? And it's so true that, you know, stupid people are confident, right? That they tend to think they're smarter than they actually are. And they're also the ones that do the least research, the least reading, the least thinking. And those who are smart, again, like you said, they assume everyone can at least think for themselves, come to conclusions, but doesn't seem to be the case, does it? You know, so yeah. Yeah, have you experienced this? Have you experienced talking to stupid but confident people? And you're just sitting there going, oh my God, you know, they believe so much in what they're saying, but it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? And then, you know, smart people, I mean, you know, one of the, you know, a saying that used to go around a lot, right? The more I know that I don't know. And to me, that's a very intelligent thought. And it pushes you on to become more and to become smarter. But stupid people don't have that thought. They don't think about that. They just tend to think, I don't know. They probably tend to not think, right? Um, but let me know, where would you put yourself now? Right? Because it's becoming a lot more obvious, right, at the moment in the world that we're inhabiting this strange realm that yeah, the stupid people really are rising, aren't they? And it's crazy out there. But let me know your thoughts and, you know, never ever think that you're stupid or not as intelligent as you are because everyone else is saying something different, right? Majority rule doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. And while I've got you, thanks for spending some time with me. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you do, please do give me a like, hype it up if you have the means, and leave me a comment. And of course, make sure you're subscribed.
Social media algorithms are dumbing down humanity. You know why? Because they appeal to our most primal instincts, because that's what has the most mass appeal. That's what's going to appeal to the most people, because all humans have that in common. We all have that monkey brain in common. The monkey brain that wants to see sexual content, that wants to talk shit, that wants to be involved in drama, that wants to be reactionary and emotional and angry about things. That is what's going to catch on to the algorithm the most. It is not our instinct to engage with content that's difficult to engage with, like things that have data, that have statistics, that talk about the economy, that talk about finance, that talk about science. And these social media companies don't care that their algorithms are just reinforcing our most primal desires and is strengthening our most primal nature and basically ruining humanity, wrecking our attention spans, and wrecking our brains, making everybody stupid. They don't care. They only care that your attention is locked into that screen for as long as they can make it locked into that screen, because that is valuable to them. That's how they make their money. Big tech had the potential to be something beautiful for humanity, and instead it's destroying it.
Yeah, I agree. Big tech, you know, and I used to think this with TV, right? Back in the day, like, why do they just put so much crap on it? Why don't they put educational stuff on there? Why aren't they using this as a way to educate people and make us smarter, right? But no, they fill it with, you know, back then it was daytime dramas and, you know, midday talk shows and all this just bubblegum for the brain, right? And I do disagree with one thing that he said. He said that, these social media, internet companies don't care that they're making us stupid. I would say that they do care and they want us to be stupid, and that's why they're doing it, right? That's why they push up all the fluff, right? All the stupid content that just wastes your time, right? They push that. They push short form content, right? Because it reduces your attention span. So I think it's a complete, plan. It's part of their script. It's what they want. Going back to J.D. Rockefeller, I want a nation of workers, not thinkers. This is the plan that they're doing right now. And by the way, just as a side note, did you know that the company that prints most of the textbooks that they use in schools is, or I think was, I think he's deceased now, owned by Ghislaine Maxwell's father, just as a side note, right? So, these are the people that are giving us the education that we went through and also for our children. And now they're in social media and pushing all this short form mind-numbingly stupid content on what everyone, but especially on our children. And it's just another way to get control of people because we know their plans, right? They want to move us into 15-minute cities. They want AI running everything and making our decisions for us. And you can't do that to an educated population. You have to dumb them down first. And AI it's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? That is really, it's having measurable psychological effects on people. It's making people not think for themselves and rely on something outside of them to give them the answers, even when that thing is an algorithm. It's not even real. It's not even alive. It's insane, right? But yeah, what do you think about social media and all this? Do you scroll a lot? I would say it's better to watch content that you search for, that you want to see, right? Rather than just scrolling at whatever pops up in front of you. And of course, the recent Epstein file release proves this. That stuff is being pushed out everywhere. It's just being multiplied and multiplied and multiplied, and it's everywhere, which tells me they want it out there. They want us focusing on it. And there's a few reasons for that. One is it says the world is this horrible place and we can't do anything about it, right? It's the elites and we can't change them. They're in control and it's bad, right? The world's bad and we can't change it. That's one big thought form that they're getting out into people's minds. And the other one is it's just wasting people's time. Scrolling, 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 trying to get more information that's not really helpful, right? It's not solution based. And everyone's jumping on it and wasting their times and going down rabbit holes that may not have a bottom, right? Which is another good way to get control of our attention while they do something else in the background.
As a society, we rely on technology far too often to do what our brains should actually be doing. I'll give you an example, and this is important to understand because our mental health and the health of our brain relies on how often we use our brain. If we don't use it and we rely solely on technology, then our mental health and the health of our brain simply doesn't work as well. So to give you an example, I know people that use Google Maps every time they're going out. Right? They're going somewhere like the grocery store or their job. They've been there a million times. Like, what do you need Google Maps for? And the problem with this is that it creates a dependency on technology, and their brain becomes weaker over time. They become sort of robotic and more automated with their driving, with their movement patterns, whatever it may be. So you want to detach from technology to the best of your ability, and also understand that even technology doesn't have it all right. I've had autocorrect, which I now call auto-assume the word I'm going to say and it's completely off. So do your best to detach from technology and get outside and get in nature, even if it's cold outside, like my hands.
Yes, get outside into nature, get away from the 2D world. I mean, of course, we all need it to some extent in this modern world, but don't spend time just wasting, right? If you're bored and just scrolling, 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 that's going to do damage to you, right? It's not like it's going to do nothing. It's actually going to adversely affect you, right? So get out into nature. Nature's the great teacher. It really is. You can learn so much just sitting in the bush or the forest, right? And watching what goes on. It is the great teacher. The 2D world wants to think for you. But like you said, that just makes you more stupid because, use it or lose it, right? The brain is like a muscle. It's like the gym. You would not expect to get bigger muscles by just going to the gym and talking to someone about it and getting their opinion on what they do and then leaving, right? You've got to do the work. You've got to use it, or else it will just atrophy and you will lose it. And this is really, well, this is exactly where we are, right? The great dumbing down. But we have a choice. We don't have to be involved, right? We can choose to educate ourselves. We can choose to start reading books again or keep reading them. We can choose to get out in nature. We can choose to have real conversations with real people. It's all choice. They just want us to believe that their choice is the best. And then there's this whole, apathetic kind of viewpoint, right? That people are just lazy. They just, it's easy to do it this way, and that makes it better. It doesn't. It doesn't. Wisdom comes not from collecting information, but from doing, getting the information and then putting it into practice, right? Like you can read car books all day, but does that mean you can take apart and rebuild a motor? Probably not, right? But once you start doing that, then you understand how it all works. Then you can take the motor apart and rebuild it. It's the same with everything, right? And you wouldn't go and see a doctor and let them operate on you if they'd only ever read books, would you? That would be very silly, right? You'd want to know that they had practical experience, which is wisdom, right? Yes, the great dumbing down. But there you go, guys. What do you think about all that? Please do leave me your comments. And, how are you dealing with this? Do you have children or grandchildren? And how are you dealing with their social media, access and scrolling? And have you seen any difference, adverse or good effects from any of this? Please let me know in the comments. And of course, thank you for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please do give me a like if you enjoyed it. Share it around, hype it up, all that stuff. Leave me your comments. And of course, if you're not subscribed, what the bloody hell are you doing? Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button, and you'll be notified of all my upcoming content. And also, guys, if you want to see me live, I'm doing 7 live shows this year. The first one is in Queensland, Rockhampton, Queensland, on the 28th of February. You'll find the tickets on tartariaaustralia.com. I'll leave the link below. And we've got a newspaper out too. Check that out. Also, tartariaaustralia.com. It's a bi-monthly newspaper, basically for us, right? For people who can think, all the interesting topics, and it's physical. It's not on the screen. There's no digital copies of it. You have to sit down and read it, right? And really start to educate yourself, right? That's what we need to get back to, which is why we've released it as a newspaper, as a physical paper. And last but not least, I'm going to Greece and Crete on a tour in June, and we're taking some people with us. We're doing a little tour. So if you're interested in that and you would like to come along, I'll also leave the link for that below. So check them all out. And most of all, guys, believe in yourself, right? Don't let other people talk you out of your own thoughts, right? Never think that you're stupid for thinking something different, because just the fact you're thinking it probably puts you in the top 90, top 5%, right? As far as intelligence goes. And more than that, stay awesome because you are. And I'll talk to you all on the next upload. Bye for now.
it's a chicken, chicken, chicken dance today. Another day of chicken dancing, dancing that away. My name is Tony, teeny tiny toner dancer, that is me.
Hi.